Good afternoon, Patriot pals. Thank you for joining me. Have a good day and God bless you. Let's get into the news. Take a look at what we have here. Well, what a big surprise. Not to me at least. Sean Hannity buried the Hunter Biden laptop story when he actually had the laptop back in 2019, along with some other right-wing individuals. This is something that I was raising alarms about a while back this year, when I was sharing with you guys the things that were coming out about Sean Hannity, things like him wanting Trump to pardon Hunter Biden, wanting Trump to go to the inauguration of Joe Biden. And among other things, this dude is a slimy individual who works at Fox News. And he's been on Fox News for like 20 plus years, continuing to pretend to care about right-wing causes, can pretend to be cared about the things like the Constitution. In the meantime, he pals around with people like Don Lemon and others from CNN. He doesn't care about his everyday viewer from on Fox News, he could care less about them. And this right here article, which Rudy Giuliani throws Sean Hannity right under the bus for not covering a laptop. So let's go and dive into it. Right, and it's Rudy Giuliani. He says I gave it to Hannity in 2019. Then John Solomon, who also buried in Rudy Giuliani, names of those who ignored the Hunter laptop story. That's why we come down here. And it shows exactly what was happening right before right here. So even former Trump administration Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was involved in burying the story of Joe Biden, Russia, Ukraine into Hunter Biden laptop story, which alters elections in skirt free speech and law. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani told Newsmax I had the whole thing. Let's say half of it, certainly enough to prosecute in 2019. Giuliani told Saturday Report saying he was waking up every morning thinking about how to reveal it to all Americans, including sharing the info with TV host Sean Hannity, Just the News, John Solomon, and even Mike Pompeo. I gave it to Hannity in early 2019, dented John Solomon, then to Mike Pompeo, who also buried it. And you should know that now that he's running for president, I will have to tell you the whole story about that at some point, he'll write. Giuliani was former President Donald Trump's private attorney and was shocked to have learned that Justice Department Attorney General Bill Barr had Hunter Biden's laptop as well. And late 2019. Yeah, that's right. The swamp creature himself, Bill Barr, and then Barr buried it in January 2020. And I did not know that Barr has the hard drive. Giuliani continued to host Rita Cosby. He covered up the hard drive from the first allegations of Russian collusion to the Trump campaign, to the presidential elections, and now deadly war in Ukraine. Americans could have known the truth in 2019. If they had just listened to Giuliani, he continued. I've been living with this for 3.5 years when I first pulled out the information about Biden's bribery in Ukraine. And I lived through that, Giuliani said. I got up every morning for the first moment. I got the hard drive saying to myself, how can I get this to my fellow citizens? Because you just read a little bit of that, you realize the candidate for the Democratic Party was a lifelong criminal. And I mean, there are 50 to 60 crimes outlined there. And I'm not saying that lightly. We were stunned when Giuliani said that the Bidens were as corrupt as the Clintons before the 2020 elections. But he was right. Rudy wouldn't know he was a former prosecutor in New York and mayor of New York before joining the Trump team today. Stood up for President Trump all these years. Sean Hannity had the information. He had the info in early 2019. At the beginning of 2019, he had it and he refused to report on it. John Solomon from Just the News had it and refused to write about it, to talk about it. And of course, Mike Pompeo, the other swamp creature of the establishment from the intel community, had it and buried it along with Bill Barr, who had it in late 2019. This story could have been national coverage. Instead, they buried it because they hated Trump. They liked riding Trump's coattails. They love getting all the extra viewership and the readership and everything that Trump was providing them. But to actually go and bat for Trump and stand up for Trump, they were unwilling to do, and they buried the biggest story of 2019 and 2020. They buried it. Those who are people that are on Fox News, those are the people that are sitting there giving, that are making money off these viewers who tune into their shows. And they continue to lie to them about things like this. Absolutely disgraceful. Sean Hannity should resign from Fox News, but he won't, because he's not an honorable man. He will not. He will continue to collect money and write another book about how great he's supportive of Trump he was. When we know the truth. He was not that he was looking for any moment to stab him in the back, and he did by not covering this story. And then some significant news: Democrats are cheering 51 seats in the Senate, a massive Democrat victory. The red wave has been stopped. Well, not so fast, Democrats. Let's take that 51 back down to 50. The Democrat Party has officially lost a seat in the Senate as former Democrat Senator Kyrsten Sinema exits the party, officially registering as an Arizona Independent. Friends, the phenomenon grows. Democrats in a certain way are united, but they're also incredibly divided. And while, of course, Republicans have the same issues, there's a division between neocon Never Trump heirs and the Republican populist base. It's not an issue that's too far gone. Unhealable and curable, but increasingly so, as we're seeing with Democrats, it's getting to the point of divorce. On a New York City councilman exiting the Democrat Party, and that comes after Tulsi Gabbard leaving the Democrat Party, and North Vegas mayor, another individual, I believe in South Texas, Andrew Yang, also leaving the party. I mean, the list goes on. More and more politicians and people are exiting the Democrat. It seems as though when we're talking about the implosion of the Democrat Party. All right, folks. So take a look at this. Senator Kyrsten Sinema leaves the Democratic Party, shaking up U.S. Senate. Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema has officially left the Democratic Party and changed her affiliation to Independent. Remove weakens Democrats' already tenuous hold on the upper chamber. Prior to her announcement, Democrats had a 51-50 majority in the U.S. Senate, and a guest column for the Arizona Republic. Sinema slammed, quote, partisanship and the stranglehold that it has on both major parties. Sinema, who is up for re-election in 2024, said that she will continue to caucus with Democrats. Here's what she had to say: everyday Americans are increasingly left behind by national parties' rigid partisanship, which has hardened in recent years. Pressures in both parties pull leaders to the edges, allowing the loudest, most extreme voices to determine their respective parties' priorities and expecting the rest of us to fall in line in catering to the fringes. Neither party has demonstrated in much tolerance for diversity of thought, she wrote. Bipartisan compromise is seen as a rarely acceptable last resort rather than the best way to achieve lasting progress. Payback against the opposition party has replaced thoughtful legislation. There's a disconnect between what everyday Americans want and deserve from our politics and what political parties are offering. I am privileged to represent Arizonans of all backgrounds and belief in the U.S. Senate, and am honored to travel to every corner of our state listening to your concerns and ideas. While Arizonans don't all agree on the issues, we are united in our values of hard work, common sense, and independence. And so look, the left is obviously freaking out over what's going on here. I'll show you some of the tweets later. The right is celebrating as if it's a massive victory. But like most things, at least in my opinion, the truth is kind of somewhere in the middle. The idea that this is a major blow to the Democrats is true, but the question is to what extent. Kyrsten Sinema has a voting track record of 93% in support with a Democrat legislative agenda. The fact of the matter is that she's a left-wing politician, at least to a certain extent. So is this a massive win for Republicans? Not exactly, but the question is now that she's no longer beholden to Democrat DNC-influenced Democrat strategy organizations like the DCCC and of course Democrat Big Money. Is her voting record going to change? I have a feeling that it's possible. Clearly, we can tell by what Kyrsten Sinema is saying here. She's unhappy with both sides, believing that they're both operating on the fringes of the political spectrum. And while she's claiming it's a both sides issue, the important thing, I think, to identify here is that she's essentially accusing the Democrat Party of going a little bit crazy. I mean, that's the relevant point for me, because she is in fact a Democrat. She's essentially saying publicly that I no longer identify with the radical left that is hijacking the Democratic agenda. And we've seen Kyrsten Sinema stand in front of Joe Biden's radical agenda on multiple occasions. I'm just going to assume here that I think Kyrsten Sinema is going to be moving more towards the middle than ever before, because she no longer has anything to lose. The Democrats can no longer try to influence her one way or another. She's no longer part of the party. And that's certainly not a good thing for Democrats who have these grand ambitions of an American left-wing socialist revolution. And boy, the blue and non-crowd extremely unhappy. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez writes not once in this long soliloquy as Sinema offer a single concrete value or policy that she believes in. She lays out no goals for Arizonans. No vision, no commitments, no healthcare, just vibes for Senate. People deserve more. Grateful this race and nomination has opened up. Victor, she writes, Hey, at Senator Sinema, I wanted to remind you that more than 70% of young voters in Arizona voted Democratic in this past midterm election. And don't worry, because you're running for re-election in 2024, General Z will make sure that you never see political office again. Adam Parko Mancow writes, I see Kyrsten Sinema is still great at being the effing worst. And so the Democrat war on Kyrsten Sinema continues. And this has serious electoral implications. Personally, I think Democrats are about to shoot themselves in the foot. As you can see, they're really excited about this open seat in Arizona in 2024. In other words, they're going to split the left-wing vote and Republicans are going to be rallied behind one Republican candidates vying for that seat. There's two outcomes that I see: either Kyrsten Sinema gains popularity as an independent and cruises to victory and the Democrat strategy fails, or Democrats split their vote between two different candidates. And the Republican essentially wins by default. Doesn't exactly seem like a winning strategy to me, but Democrats are furious. They're venting online. And once again, they're proving to the world that they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, especially in their criticism of Kyrsten Sinema. I keep seeing tweets like this popping up. Kyrsten Sinema single-handedly stopped Democrats from ending tax breaks for hedge fund managers and private equity executives. Meanwhile, she received around $1 million in donations from Wall Street. Don't be fooled. Sinema as an independent, she's beholden to her donors. Don't overthink Senator Kyrsten Sinema switching from Democrat to independent. She's not driven by ideology. She's driven by which corporations and lobbyists are giving her the most money, which makes her an elected mercenary, not an elected representative of the people. Who you don't say Kyrsten Sinema is evil because she's taking her money from hedge funds and private equity. She's beholden to her donors. You realize you're a supporter of the Democrat Party, right? Here's the breakdown. Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Look where the money comes from: hedge funds and private equity, pharmaceutical/health products, lobbyists, commercial banks, securities and investments, lawyers and law firms, civil servants and public officials, all of that money. All of the big institutional hedge fund lobbyists, corporate money funds, the Democrat establishment. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is supported by small-dollar grassroots donors. These people have no idea what they're talking about. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe Kyrsten Sinema wants to be an independent because she's sick of the whole corporate Democrat vibe. I mean, I wouldn't blame her, and maybe she's also sick of you far-left lunatics, who continue to try to ram down your incredibly unpopular ideas and policy decisions that Arizona and voters are not interested in. But in conclusion, this is an L for the Democrat Party and Democrat voters. Is it the biggest lie of all time? Not exactly, but it's an L nonetheless. The Democrat Party continues to fracture. And really, I guess the only question is, when is the Republican Party going to get its act together? Because considering all of the chaos, division, terrible image and policy coming out of the Democrat Party, there are literally no more excuses. There is no excuse to not seeing electoral success for the GOP. And now we're seeing another possible competitive Senate seat in Arizona opening up. It's time to start coming up with a cohesive, coherent strategy as the Democrat Party grows weaker and weaker. Thanks for sticking around. Follow me daily. I will do my best to show you. There's a lot of information that shows what's going on. Remember where we go.